Hi, everyone. I'm Melody Morrison. Thank you for coming to my virtual presentation on how to incorporate YouTube emojis and memes into your music studios. When I first decided to do research on this topic, I had no idea that at the time I would present it, the extent that we would have to rely on technology for our daily teaching routines. But now that living within the internet has become our reality, hopefully the information shared today will give you some fresh insight and ideas that you can apply as we're living in the virtual world, really. So let's get started. Share the screen here. Okay, so in our everyday lives, we have probably had plenty of hands on experience with YouTube, emojis, and even memes. Probably, if you're on social media at all, you see memes, probably, but in your newsfeed all the time. These can function, however, not only as entertainment, but as tools for teaching, as we'll dive into today. Students who will respond especially well to this are those born in Generation Z, so see in the purple square, those born between 1996 and 2012, and those born 2012 to 2025, which is called Generation Alpha. And I'm not sure if my little tile is covering that, but it should be in your handouts as well. So, Generation Z, a little bit about them. Like I said, born between 96 2012. They're called digital natives. They're different from millennials in that they largely prefer any sort of visual communication, and they expect immediate results because their world has almost always consisted of very fast acting technology and easily accessible services. Now, the alpha generation takes digital familiarity a step further, and I can't even remember a time where smartphones and constant technology were not part of their everyday lives. They don't think of technology as a tool anymore, but rather it's almost like an extension of them. It's just a part of life. There's no question about it. It's just there. Scientists have said that they're part of an unintentional global experiment because screens have been placed in front of these children at the same time as pacifiers, really. And that's why you can see a 4-year-old just navigating through an iPad almost better than adults sometimes. So one can imagine that a huge part of these generations' lives, technology has affected them greatly and will continue to affect them. And not only, just the entertainment side of things, but also how they take in the world around them, and furthermore, how those view education and how they'll learn. In fact, other studies have shown that even the brains of kids have become structurally different than those of previous generations, and not because of genetics or anything, but just because of the way that they're taking in the world around them. So, a quote from a 2016 study says, "The brains of Generation Zs have become wired to sophisticated, complex visual imagery. And as a result, the part of the brain responsible for visual ability is far more developed, making visual forms of learning more effective." So, I thought that was very interesting. A 2018 report of Generation Z US teens showed that they heavily use media far more than millennials, and especially media that is visually stimulating. For example, Instagram, Snapchat, and 85% of them actively use YouTube every day. Another study showed that um, a majority of US teens will take learning over YouTube over live group activities, lectures, apps, or games, or any other sort of tool, such as printed books. YouTube was second only to teachers as a learning tool. That was very interesting. YouTube is just climbing and climbing on how people love to learn nowadays. So this leads us to our first topic, which is YouTube. Ever since the video sharing sites launching in 2005, millions and millions of videos in pretty much every genre you can think of have been uploaded. As of May 2019, 500 hours were uploaded every minute. So some of the content on YouTube does include music and piano topics, and we can make use of that. So that's what I'm going to talk about in a few seconds here. Some of the benefits of using YouTube as a learning tool are flipped instruction. So if you want a student to learn about something or have an intro to it before coming into a lesson, then you could give them a pre-selected video and have them watch it before the lesson, and then they can come in and give you their explanation of it. And then you could talk about it then. Could also, be a permanent resource for them to refer to after the lesson as well. And it can serve as supplemental information. So just if you want them to learn circle of fifths or something like that. And you don't have time to really go over and over again in your lesson. So you can assign them a video about the circle of fifths and have them watch that so that it's not eating up a huge part of your lesson time. And self-directed learning, this is great too. I've done this with some of my older students. I have them maybe explore a certain channel that I found for them, or if they really like composing or improvising, I found videos for them to look at, and then they can explore on their own. And of course, as with any tool, you have to, warn them that there are, you know, there's some faulty information out there, maybe not the best, not completely trustworthy. So just give them a heads up about that. And then the fourth benefit is just a lesson enhancer. It can just really spice things up in your lesson. Uh, Sometimes if I'm having a hard time with a younger student, I have some go-to videos that will, get them playing a game or clapping. They're just to kind of make things interesting for them. They really love it. Or it can serve as a reward, after they've done a good job in their lesson. For older students as well, like a pre-selected video to reinforce a concept you just taught them can really make a big difference in a lesson. And as you see, the fifth benefit there is positive reception. I've always gotten great reception from students. They love to be engaged, like in a some kind of visually stimulating um, tool, and it really caters to the audible and visual learning modes that I mentioned a few minutes ago. So there are several channels that prove to be useful for teachers and students, and I've compiled a list of all of that. And again, these are in your handouts, so these are all there for you to refer to. Now, these right here, these four are channels that I had found useful for teachers specifically. And these include lessons from master teachers, as well as technique tips and ideas for lessons. So let me show you some screenshots, some examples from these channels. So here's one from Pianist Magazine's playlist page. You'll see that they have lessons to watch, as well as some jazz instruction, which is really fun. And some great performances. So really great channel. Now these, the following channels here, they can be used for student viewing. And I split them into two categories. So for fun, you can kind of trick a student, so to speak, and show them something that seems to be just purely entertaining, but at the same time, it can expose them to useful musically educating things. For example, there's a classical music mashup that's really fun, and it has little pictures of the composers on the staff. So they think that it's just for fun, but really you're educating them as well. And then there are the purely educational channels here. Sometimes I'll assign this as extra homework or show them during a student get together. And these really, more than ever, now that students are at home, you can assign these to them as additional homework. It's great, since they're probably watching YouTube anyway at their house. So again, I have these in the handout for you guys. Okay. Now here's some screenshots of those, just so you can see a few examples. Here's one about rhythm composition from Hoffman Academy. That's a really fun one. That's great. And then this one is very popular in my younger students, Sweet Beats. So basically he's singing a song, and the students can follow along and they're clapping, and the beats are always going to be a quarter note and the cherries are eighth notes. So it really gets them just tapping these rhythms along, and they love the tune, they love the song. So always had great experiences with this video here. Now, on sharing YouTube links, obviously we're not doing in-person lessons right now, so sharing the link via text message or email is the best right now. But when you go to in-person lessons again, QR codes can prove to be very useful as well. So here's an example of when I used this. I had a summer challenge in my studio. So you'll see I gave instructions on the top there. And then over here, down here, that is the QR code. And that was a very useful video introducing them to solfege hand signs. So they just pointed their phone to it, and it took them to that YouTube link. Now, this might seem kind of scary, making your own YouTube studio channel, but it's actually not as bad as you think, and it can be very useful because you can post videos of your own performances. You can post videos of students' performances with parents' permission, of course, and you can post students' compositions and improvisation, again with permission, and you can post your own explanations of music theory, techniques, and other concepts you would like students to be able to refer to as a permanent guide, a permanent reference outside of the lesson time, because students can only take so much in during the lesson. So having this tool for them is incredibly helpful and can serve as variety too in format. So here is a music studio, Sonder Music Piano Studio channel. You'll see they have some student improv and performances, and I really like they have a student composition there at the bottom right. Now the next topic is emojis. This is pretty fun. So you've probably seen these little pictures everywhere. You probably use them in your text messages, Facebook messages, email, wherever. So they were introduced in 1997. And the little picture I put is actually a picture of the first time the emoji was used on that cell phone down there. And Japan first put that option, and then in the 2010s when smartphones were introduced, it really took off, became a phenomenon, and so much so that the laughing or the face with tears of joy, that one right there was 2015's Oxford Word of the Year. So there's ongoing research in school settings in various countries about students who react positively to these emojis in the classroom. And from my own experience, I've really seen anything emoji related connects well with students and gets a lot of positive response. So let me show you some examples of when I use them in actual pieces. So here I'm using them for expression purposes and mood shifts in pieces. So I'll talk through the mood or a story of a piece and I'll choose the best emoji to show that. So here is a piece where I was working on with a student and there was an intense part there in measure 13. So we both chose to use this emoji, and that just kind of helped confirm the idea that this kind of that was an aggressive moment because we just couldn't quite get the power there that we were needing for that spot, but that really helped. And then measure 34, or I think that was meant for measure 29 actually. That was kind of a softer, more serene part of the piece, so we use it there. And here's another piece, and it just really helps the student think about what's going on in the piece in terms that they think are fun and exciting. So this worked better than I thought it would in the several months that I've been doing this with my students. So I'd encourage you to try this out yourself as well. So you can also use them not only as for expression and sections of the piece, but special spots in pieces. And when I mean special spots, like when a student they're just a note that they always seem to play natural, or when it's supposed to be flat, or vice versa. So I actually had that happen here in measure 9. The student kept missing the E flat, so I asked him, "What's your favorite emoji?" And he said, "Oh, the poop emoji is my favorite one." So I said, "Okay," and I didn't have my stickers with me at the time, so I drew one there, and actually this was really successful. He never missed the E flat again. Every time he saw that emoji, he was like, "Oh, okay, I gotta play the E flat. I gotta play it." And that was a great example of how that worked. The student, maybe you don't want to use that emoji, but use another one. And lastly, with stickers, sometimes instead of numbering sections, the student will just choose to use an emoji just because it's fun. It just changes things up a little bit. So here's an example. We cut it up into sections and we put an emoji to represent each section. Now, with improvisation, I've also used these. So I have a student who loves to compose. We do composing every week. So I told her, this is from one of the weeks, create a short piece based on this emoji. And, we would go in, like, what's his name? Like, kind of just helps her develop ideas. And what she came back with the next week was great. And we've done this now for several weeks. And really, with emojis, if you can just add them wherever you can, wherever you find the opportunity, that's great. It'll connect with kids really well. So on the left, you'll see I used this as a recital reception at a piano camp. Everything was emoji themed. The students loved it, and the parents as well. And on the right is the achievement chart in my studio. Now, the last topic of interest today is memes. The internet sensation that continues to entertain all ages with humor Personally, this is my favorite. The little etymology of the word meme, the term was coined in 1976 in Richard Dawkins' book called The Selfish Gene, and its definition was a cultural idea, joke, or movement that was imitated as it spread from person to person. So it still largely means that today and can come in many forms, such as videos, dances. If you've ever heard of dabbing, then that's a meme technically. Now, the most common meme version is an image of a person or an animal with a funny caption, like this one would hide in there. That's a good one. So when I say meme today, I'm going to be referring to that definition. So these are some examples of when I've used them in my class handouts for oral skills and class piano. I've gotten laughs and a lot of positive feedback from them. Some students even say it's like the best part of their week to start out with this. So these have been very popular. And here's another way you can use them. My friend Katie is a teacher in the Salem Kaiser School District, and she has a wall of memes, and her middle schoolers really love it, she said. And on the right is in my studio. I have a wall of memes that I update every now and then, and students love to look at them. Now, you might be wondering where to find memes. So I've given you some of the places that I find them. So Classic FM's Facebook page is a really great resource. You just have to go to their profile, go to timeline photos, and there you go. You'll see that at the time they had 16,526 photos. They're always updating it. Every day you can find fresh memes. That's great. Another one is just doing a simple Google image search, music memes. You could try piano memes, music major memes, depending on what you're looking for. This is great. Also, it's updated pretty frequently. And also Pinterest boards. This is a great resource. There's some boards that are dedicated solely to music memes and piano humors, so you can go there as well. And I'm sure there are other resources out there that you can find music memes on, and maybe you already do. Now, I wanted to show you how to make your own custom memes, and it's not as scary as it sounds. So I'm actually going to take you, now that I'm doing this on Zoom, it's easy to actually just show you live how to make one. So let's just say that a lot of my students in my studio, and this has always been the case, where there's just a few who love to practice a little bit too fast, love to play things a little bit too fast. So you'll see I have this meme pulled up here, and I'm going to type in so there you go, simple meme. So you'll see that it says practicing the tempo my teacher gave me. It's what they should be doing, but instead they're like, and they pull the car over to practicing at 300 BPMs. So that's just kind of a fun way to get that point across. I've had students actually see that meme before, and they're like, yeah, I'm guilty of that. That's funny. And who knows, maybe they'll remember that and they'll not practice as fast. Who knows? I also wanted to show you a great resource, on knowing the origin of a meme or how it's used. So knowyourmeme.com. So I actually pulled up this meme that we just used, and it shows like how it originated. Here's the original YouTube video. And they show a lot of examples on how to use it. So that's a great resource in case you want to, see how exactly to use it if you're not quite sure. So that's if you want to get your feet wet and get really brave with making your own. But it's actually a lot of fun. It's pretty addicting. So that is memes, and that's all in your handout. So as teachers, it is our job to stay current with what we can and what students are doing nowadays and are using as part of their everyday lives and how they communicate. I'd like to read one last quote here from a book called On Becoming a Teacher, from a chapter called Staying Current. Our society is changing rapidly. New technologies and ways of communication are altering the way we live. Your students will not know the old ways. They will only know the new ways. The new ways will be the only way for them. You must embrace these changes, particularly in the technological world, if you expect to connect with your students. Meet your students where they are at. Use examples from their world, not yours. Make assignments relevant to their lives. Staying current does not mean being untrue to who you are. to your own history. Rather, staying current involves staying open to the process of learning. So while tools like YouTube memes and emojis might seem like trivial and perhaps silly additions to pedagogy, it really is much more than that. These things are a part of our culture now, especially for the younger students, the younger generations. Culture impacts and includes what people do and how we act. It influences how we see the world and how we communicate with each other. And finally, how we learn. By understanding and adopting these newer additions to life, we can go further with connecting with students and make a greater difference in their musical education. If you have any questions about anything I've mentioned today, totally feel free to send me an email at nmorrison@corbin.edu. And thank you all for listening to me today and coming to my virtual presentation. I hope you had fun hearing about these today. I hope you learned something, and I hope you have even more fun exploring using YouTube, emojis, and memes in your own studio. Thanks. Have a great day.